well, welcome back. I just want to say that the stuff I'm about to talk to you about in this video, I talk a little bit of pricing, but there's always an exception to this discussion, depending on where you're at or the animal you're looking at. We've sold animals in and out of this range and also bought animals in and out of this range. So take it with a grain of salt and stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back. So I guess we're going to just try a little something different. It's nice Sunday afternoon out here, a little bit of breeze. So I was talking to Shayna, and I thought something that may be helpful to you guys, and it may take me a couple days to shoot this and put it together. I didn't take any notes before it came out, but I thought what might be helpful to some new producers. We're still new producers, we're just a few years into it, so we're not as experienced as some people, but you learn a lot quick. And I thought what might be handy is to kind of let you guys know, maybe on our animals or our feed stuffs, kind of where we've maybe thought we've made some mistakes or some early trials as we've tried to work towards some things. I thought maybe I'd start with just the animals. So I guess we'll call this part one, our mistakes and successes in buying animals. So first thing you kind of want to decide that we didn't really figure out or talk about to start with is what's your goal? Decide what you want to do with your goats. I mean, if you're raising Boers like us, or if you're gonna raise, talking to my mother-in-law, she's thinking she wants to maybe get some pygmies and raise some toy breed goats. Have a goal for what you're doing. If you're raising dairy goats, like I said, we've got a Nubian here. We call her Honey. You guys have seen her before. She is registered. We got her from here about an hour up the road. Our goal with her is we're not going to show her. She's just a sweet goat to have around. We do always kind of have to have a pen buddy for her because gets very lonesome. But outside of that, we're just going to breed her this next season and have her around for just milk production if we have some triplets or something and a mom can't take them. So that's kind of her purpose. But our Boers, when we started, we got a small amount of ground here, just a couple acres that we're using. We may rent a few from Sherry and Tracy here in the next year or two, and maybe do a little bit of hay production, or just give us the option to expand a little bit. So hopefully we'll be able to rent a few acres from them going forward. But when we started, we had a couple goats. They weren't very good. They were just Craigslist goats, which I'm not going to knock Craigslist goats. We picked up some good commercials, some different things like that. You kind of can snag one in the rough every now and then. But we were just going to sell them for meat production down at the sale barn. And then we kind of realized that to cover your cost of inputs to raise a healthy animal. Now, what I'm going to say is there's going to be raising goats, and then there's going to be raising goats. And we tend to try to raise goats with that emphasis. So we put a lot of emphasis on the health of them, some things like that. If we can provide them something good, we're going to do it. We try to give them good hay. When we put our round bale inside the shed, inside a garage door on the side of the shed, and we unwrap it. In there, we slough all the outside off. I set them on pallets to avoid any absorption from the ground through the winter and stuff. Just trying to preserve as much as I can. But we are always giving thought to the quality of the product we're giving to our goats to keep them healthy. And if you're raising at the local sale barn, say in this area, there can be a lot of fluctuations. There can be anywhere from $1.50 to $2 a pound you can receive, up to pushing well north of $3.50 a pound. And the sales are just every other weekend, and you can't hit it from week to week. So by buying grain, they're not just on hay. We don't really have any pasture. This area behind us, that's about the only grass they have. I'll get some fertilizer on it here and let it regrow and spray it if need be. come spring to let it regrow, and I've got another little area that will fence in this next year. But other than that, they're basically dry lotted on hay and alfalfa during kidding seasons and some kind of good grain. So it was just hard to cover costs. Now, if we look into the cost of buying a commercial goat, whether that just be for commercial production or whether that would be as a recip if you're into registers, just to help carry embryos. For the most part, if you're going to the sale barn, take it with a grain of salt that is the sale barn a place where somebody is going to take their animal that they could have otherwise sold privately, especially with social media, to the sale barn. So we take a few down there. We'll take some wethers down or something like that at the tail end of the season. We don't necessarily sell for meat consumption animals off the farm. We'll usually take them to the sale barn. But if you're doing that, if you're the buyer, really check them over. Learn what a FOMACHA score is on their eyes for worms. Check pasterns. Check a lot of different things structurally. Teat structures, if it matters to you, frame, things like that that's more important on the register side. Look into that stuff. Really look at the animal and see how they've been taken care of. Have their hooves been trimmed? Just things like that. You could be buying, frankly, a dumpster fire. And one thing that we've learned and even read about, as much as we all love our animals, and no matter what anybody outside of agriculture tries to say, we care about them. These goats are part of our family, whether you want to say that or not. It's always hard to see them leave or anything like that, but you can't save them all. We've had a couple commercial does we brought them back, put them on a good feed program, got their health up, took care of them. One of them produced the reserve grand champion at the Nebraska State Fair here in 2020. So shout out to Heather Lange up the road. So it can be done, but just know that you could end up buying something that you can't ever make healthy. Maybe they go because goats can generate a high worm load that you can't ever control. It happens to all of us. There's a genetic resistance in some animals. It could be a multitude of things. So take that into consideration. The quality animal you're going to buy, I'm not going to knock anybody on this, but if me and Shayna were to go out and look at a commercial animal, where we are now, if you said, hey, I've got this, 1.5 or 2-year-old doe, reproductively untouched, that's a key for us. We like reproductively untouched under 2 years old. And we don't breed anything until they're about 1.5 years. $200? Oh, I want to look at it. We're a lot pickier now, but get it out of your head that a goat should be $75. If you're buying a goat for $75, either A, they don't know what they've got, or B, you don't probably want the animal. I'm not going to say that in every case, but it's not unheard of to spend a few $100s on a basic commercial doe in good health that's got some good assets to her. So if I were to put a cap on a good commercial animal for just basic meat production, I guess we probably wouldn't spend over $400 or $500, but that's just not the route we're going on a straight commercial. We're going to leave weather genetics out of that. So weather genetics are its own animal, just like any show livestock. When you start getting into that, there's other attributes you're looking at that are not necessarily papered. Maybe they do have some registrations in their past, but it's not of the utmost concern. So throw that out. So that's kind of my caveat there on the commercials and kind of price wise. Don't walk up. If we sold a 3-year-old animal here, we've sold some of our commercials off here, 3, 4, 5 years old. They're still good producers. We still got a couple of them here. We'll be honest with the kids they've had, their health. We keep records of everything. A lot of times we're maybe selling 3 or 4 of them to try to go towards a really good percentage animal, or a full blood animal. So coming from us, we're not looking to just dump an animal, but don't be expected if we're asking $300 or $400 for a decent doe that's had her health kept up. And so when you come and get her, you can trust that you're getting a decent animal when you get home, that it's not going to be a vet magnet. So I guess that's just a quick spiel on some commercials. Next, we want to move to your percentage animals and a few thoughts about your percentage animals. So as we started to do this and we got through our first handful of commercial animals, we thought, okay, well, I think we want to start getting into more of the registered side, doing some registered shows and breeding stock. We found out that's just kind of where our interest lied, even more so than going into the leather genetic lines. So in that first year, we picked up 4 percentage animals. I want to say out of those 4, I think as we've changed some things up, I think Mystique right here is the only one that's still here. And so she's, we had anything from north of 50% to, upper 80s. It wasn't high percentages. And, in that first year, we went from thinking, okay, if we're going to get some higher quality, we need to spend some more money. Which it is pretty much, you get what you pay for as long as you are very careful with what you're looking at. Don't get taken. And so, we probably spent anywhere from $500 to $800. I'm just going to give you a range there on some of these percentage animals, and all of them had their good things. We stepped up into something higher than just a registered buck on a commercial doe. We had some percentage, and so our thoughts when we did that to where we started to move into full bloods have kind of changed, because I know here in Nebraska and a lot of I'll call them our goat family, everybody we've kind of become acquainted with, or if we haven't, we know who they are. There's a big crew out of Colorado that comes down to a lot of the Nebraska shows, especially during COVID this year. But the percentage game is very strong right now. You can generally get into the animal just a little cheaper than a full blood. And like I said, you could probably do a percentage depending on their pedigree, who you're getting them from. It still kind of depends. Some people will put some value in the farm it's coming from based on what they know of the farm, based on previous quality or how well they're taken care of. You're probably going to start moving from the top into your commercial end up until Fanny over there. It's not unheard of. Okay, it can get crazy. If we're buying a percentage, depending on where they're at, you're probably going to end up being anywhere from, God, I don't know the quality. We've gotten too picky, but I would say you're going to buy a percentage anywhere from $600 or $700 for a decent quality one, up till, God, I mean, you could spend a few $1,000s on them. I would say to get started, don't be scared. That $1,000 is always a hard mark to break. And so when we bought Fanny, she's one of the ones that's a percentage, but Curtis and Amy, she's just a really good doe, and we decided at that time, for what our mindset budget was for goats at that time, that she was worth going over that $1,000 point. And we're going into our second kidding with her, and so you start to look at frame and what you can get out of them, and you're going to adjust that point. But I would say on your percentage does, look to be able to push that $1,000 mark if applicable, and depending on what your goals are. So if you want to run a percentage herd, where we previously thought there's not really a market for percentage, it's kind of this oddball mix in the middle, that's not really true. It's very strong, and it's getting stronger. There can be 18 goats in a 3 to 6 month or 6 to 9 month class at one show. Little Oreo we had was in the 6 to 9 month, and I think I showed against 17 or 18 other percentage does just in that class, which is the biggest class in the show, because it's very easy to get to a percentage registration. Anything 50% and up, you could toss in there. So don't overlook that anymore. So that's probably somewhere where we've changed, and we may look to bring some more percentage into our herd. I don't know. We've got plenty of percentage in the herd to breed with. So I don't know. We'll see where that goes. But same thing follows. Health, structure, teat structure, a lot of the ABGA standard stuff you're going to want to start watching now. Maybe over your commercials. But if you can tell, if you know what their kids have produced before, maybe they've got a recessive trait that, they're not always passing on a good teat structure, or maybe the buck has been cleaning something up in that doe and you're not really going to know. Sometimes that's a chance you're going to have to take. So just try to find somebody who's honest, that's willing to work with you. All right, last but not least, before my phone dies here, it's going to be kind of our third classification that we have on our farm, and that'll be our Fullbloods. We didn't start with any Fullbloods. We really didn't have any Fullbloods until about 2 years ago. And I would even have to check with Shayna to see who our first Fullblood is. It may actually be, we call her Rebar. She's in this pen, if you guys can see. I think she's this one right here. She's on the west side of the feeder. She came from Travis down at Rebar Ranch in Oklahoma. Same thing, production sale. Picked her up. And I would say for most Fullbloods, you're going to probably start at $1,000. There are not as many of them out there that come up for sale. But, now when we're spending that kind of money on a Fullblood, we want to be pretty picky with what we're getting. We've still got some scenarios where maybe you picked one up a little bit less than $1,000, but you've probably made a consolation on some part of that animal from what you wanted. You've probably made a consolation on that animal somewhere to spend less money than that. And it really probably depends on your area. I don't know what the rest of you are spending, but that's for sales here around Nebraska. And then now we're talking, it's not going to be unheard of to, if you're going to compete for an animal, sometimes $2,000 will not compete for a, sub 2-year-old, reproductively untouched, hasn't been bred yet, doe. And so be prepared for that. If you really get into one, $1,000 may touch it, may not touch it. If John's watching this, shout out to John. John's here in Nebraska, and he actually bought one of our animals, Tommy. She was a Fullblood doe that we raised here on the farm, and I want to say I think he picked her up for $1,000. And so for him, she was a doe for us that as we bred her, so as we got her onto a little heavier feed ration, she really blossomed, kept her health up, and she was always doing well. So for John, he walked in and we had her on an auction, and he picked her up for $1,000. So we've been in a couple cases like that too. We've also walked in and looked at a couple animals that maybe we didn't know who the farm was, and thought, well, maybe $2,200 we could get her. She fits our style that we're looking for. And all of a sudden that animal will go for $7,000 or $4,000, say. And so you're just never really sure. There's probably always somebody out there who knows the genetic pedigrees better than you, or maybe has a different opinion of that farm, or is more familiar with their quality. So those are some things you can run into. Okay, last but not least, I would say just some tips and tricks, just some transparency of some of the things we've learned over the last year. So if you were to say work with boergoats.com and look up some of the sale bills, and you're watching them on DV auction and bidding online, here's a couple suggestions that we feel like we've kind of burned ourselves a little bit. We maybe would have paid a little bit less for an animal here or there, but it's a wash in the end. Try to go to that viewing of that sale. If you're buying at a production sale, go to that viewing. Watching a video and looking at the pictures will only do you so much. In the beginning, if we could find a video of the animal, we thought we were walking in tall cotton, right? For lack of, not using the term correctly. We thought, video, we can actually see the animal. See if you can get an animal, a a video from all directions, not just a side view down and back, because you'll never actually see what they've got for width across the chest and their frame and stuff like that. So we've run into that in a couple places. To remedy that, go to the viewing Friday night, early Saturday morning before the sale. If you're serious about it, don't be afraid to drive a couple hours to do this. We bought a couple of them in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's like a 6-hour drive. I think we bought 3 does. We saw videos and watched pictures. But when we got there and picked them up the next morning, I drove down, got there about 1 a.m., got a hotel room, picked them up. After watching them, making a couple gas stops, pop stops on the way back, looking at them in the goat tote, they start to grow on you, start to see what you got. Once you get them home, you're like, I don't know if I would have maybe paid $400 less for that animal if I would have seen them in person. So you'll probably have a little bit of buyer's remorse. Now that we've had a couple of those goats here, we don't have that. But they've been on our feed program and some stuff. So there could be a little bit of, well, maybe the video or pictures were taken a month, or 6 weeks ahead of the sale. So what you're seeing in the pictures are not always great. DV Auction does a real great job with their video, but depending on your computer connection and stuff like that, you may have some grainy video and not fully be able to see them. Outside of that, I guess here's a little insight on production sales. So us as producers, not trying to give out any dirty little secrets or anything, but as producers, we've been in one sale. We were super grateful to be invited so early in our producing career. So what we do is we have to pay, and this is pretty consistent from my understanding, usually you have to pay $150 just to get that animal in the sale. And then depending on your animal, if you sold some stuff earlier in the season and maybe you're having to pull some stuff out of your show string, or maybe an animal that you weren't really planning to sell, but they said, hey, you've got 3 lots or 4 lots, you need to come up with something. Maybe you're not looking to sell that animal, but if it brought a certain price, some of them will have a reserve to them. So just as full transparency, there could be a reserve on that animal. Now, if you're looking to produce animals and get into a sale, these are the things you want to know. So if you're setting a reserve, say $1,000, right, or $750 for your animal, make sure you take into consideration the fact that if that animal no sales, it's only bringing $650, and you don't tell them to go ahead and let it go, you got to take $150 off that for your lot fee. So if you got it set in your mind of what your bare bones minimum would be, don't forget about that part. We kind of forgot about that part. Ours covered their reserves when they sold, and so it kind of came out as a wash. But like, young bucks are hard to sell if they're not monsters, and so we took Stratcom just to see, and with full intentions we wanted to bring him home and put some weight on him and grow him out another at least 6 months. So like there, we paid $150 to take him and not show him and bring him back. So take that off of everything else. So you gotta, I think I've got a situation over here. I'm gonna have to get a goat out of the fence. But take that into consideration when you're looking at some of these animals to buy at these sales. You're be cognizant of what you think they're probably gonna bring, not just I'm gonna steal this animal for a cheap price. You're not gonna buy a $1,000 animal for $600. It's just not gonna happen, because if that producer truly knows that animal and says that animal is a $1,000 animal, they're probably gonna have a reserve on that animal. So just know that going into it. So I guess take that for what it's worth. Just be cognizant of who you're dealing with as far as producers. Get out to the farm, look at that animal, go to that sale and look at it if you can. Ask questions, have a good feeling about them. If you feel like they're being a little shady, there's probably something with that animal that you should have walked away from. Don't feel obligated. just because you showed up to take that animal. I know for us, we have people that come out one time and just want to look at them. You know, on one hand, for us, we're like, oh man, they showed up in the car, they're not going to pick them up. Well, if they really feel good about that animal and you, they'll come back and purchase that animal from you. Or it's an option to let them see your herd so they can have faith in what you're doing across your whole operation. And I know some people showed up here and they've made comments about that, and we take pride in that. You know, it reaffirms that we're doing the right thing. So like I said, if you're even on the commercial end, that's an investment out of your pocket for those animals. So if you're spending $200 or $300 to $400 or $500, get the best animals you can for that. Just don't go up the road and pick up whatever from the lady up the road that lets them roam out in the trees, and you can see all their ribs and stuff. They're just not being well taken care of. It could be something as simple as feed. So I guess I'm kind of rambling at this point, but if you guys got any questions, go ahead and leave your questions down in the comments, and we'll try to respond to them. We ask that you like and share like everybody does. Let us know what you think. If you don't like the video and you give us a thumbs down, let us know why. I mean, you could just think I'm annoying and I talk too much. That's fine. Let me know. I already know this. So it'll help us get better, and hopefully we can bring you some better content. Or if we shoot a video and you say, hey, when you were trimming hooves, like the terrible hoof trimming video I gave you guys where I didn't show enough detail, I'm going to redo that this spring when my shoulder's better. Say, hey, can you get a close-up of how you were doing that? Because I didn't really see and I'm not 100% sure. I'd be more than willing, because a lot of times things are taken at an overview and you don't get those details. Or if Shayna's doing a clipping video or showing that, make a comment, ask for that, get a hold of us. We'll try to show you that closer. We're not experts, but we know what it was like trying to learn without anybody to show us. So the goat community is really pretty good about helping others out. So don't be afraid to ask. So with that, we've got Brett hanging out with me. He was over here barking at the ladies in the fence. So we'll see you guys later.